This segment of the show is Cheers to That with our friends at Yeti.
I didn't even know anything was wrong until I got back to the locker room, and my traveling partner, Caleb Bennett, kind of looked at me funny, and he was like, "Good ride." He was like, "I sure hope that's not your blood," you know what I mean? And I didn't know what he meant. And I still had my chaps on. I'm fixing to kind of retape and everything, and noticed I had a pretty good little clot of blood all down my pants, and was kind of like wondered where it came from. And sure enough, it was coming out of the last place you'd want blood to be coming out of.
Welcome to the Luke Branquinho Show. My next guest is a guy that has had a ton of success in a short amount of time. 3-time NFR Qualifier, Leighton Berry. Leighton, thanks for joining, man.
Luke, thanks for having me.
First off, congratulations on a great winner. Got Houston again. That's back-to-back, which anybody that's rodeoed knows that a back-to-back win anywhere, is whether it's a small rodeo, but especially a big rodeo like Houston, that's probably one of the coolest things a guy could have in his career.
Man, it's awesome. I feel super blessed about it. To get it done twice in 2 years in a row is pretty special to me. It's a goal I actually set out for. And like I said, if you're not talking about it or believing that you can do it more than once, then what's the point kind of type deal. So to get it done twice is a pretty special feeling.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think throughout my career what rodeos, Santa Maria, which, you know, it's $8,000-$10,000 added rodeo, but it's still, like I said, it doesn't matter where you're at, where you know how much is added to get a back-to-back win rodeo. And with the competition, especially nowadays, you guys got a huge group of young kids coming up that are just phenomenal. We talk about obviously Rocker Steiner, but Keenan Hayes. I can't even think of these young kids that are coming up, but I mean, there's a group of them that are kind of out for blood.
Yeah, there's a whole mess of them. I've really gotten to watch bareback riding slowly transition, almost like it's hard to say, but like kind of seen a lot of guys hit the end of their careers and retire or kind of call it good or slow down. And then I've watched all these young guys come up. When me and Cole Reiner traveled together our first year and made the NFR, we were both 21, and the only other guy that was under 30 in the locker room was Clayton Bigelow, and he was 25. Wow. And then come my last year was way different too, but then our second NFR, Cole's third in 2022, they're almost everybody but two guys were over 30, and so we've kind of watched the whole transitional period, and now you got all these young rookies. The rookie race is actually super intense. It was last year. Yeah. You had 4 or 5 rookies at the finals last year gunning it out, and then obviously a world champ. So it's pretty cool to see how bareback riding's kind of coming around and evolving again.
Well, and not only 4 or 5 that made the finals, but there were like 2 or 3 that were 16, 17, or within the top 20 that didn't get through. And you talk about old guys in the locker room. We all know we're talking about Richie Champion. He's kind of the old man river there in the bareback riding locker room. We can make fun of him all we want to, because when I told him I was having you on the show, he said, make sure you bring up a lot of things. He actually texts me a list of stuff to bring up to make funny, which I'm not going to. I'm not that type of guy, Richie, just so you know. I'm not I'm not a Dickman champion like he is.
Yeah, let's just avoid those questions probably.
But it has been fun for me to watch, my whole career. I got to see Larry Sandvik ride, and now watching you guys ride. So I bring Larry Sandvik's name up a lot because I could remember he traveled with us from Bremerton, Washington, down to San Juan Capistrano. And his hand, like it had an actual indention in it where I guess the tit of the glove would hit in the rigging. Is your hand like that, or?
No, ours, we have some pretty good equipment these days. Honestly, I give a lot of credit to old school bareback riders, and you look at the riggings even 20 years ago and the gloves, especially. The gloves have changed a lot. Those guys were just tough as nails. That their hands basically became a vice, and I don't know how they did it, but we worked pretty hard to make sure our stuff's pretty dang comfortable. And nowadays you see our hands, it might look like they're going in pretty hard, but they usually come out pretty easily. And there's a lot of work that goes into making sure those gloves, like, are comfortable and you can actually squeeze it like a baseball bat instead of just being, rocketed in there. But yeah, no, I don't know how those guys did it. That Larry Sandvik's a different breed for sure.
Oh, but what's impressive to me is a lot of people think it's a grip, like you're getting a hold of something, but really it's a bind. And so the rigging sits like this, and your knuckles, your fingertips are actually locked in there. So you're not gripping the actual handle. You're just bound with your knuckles rolled in like that, isn't it?
Well, in a sense, I mean, yeah, like the idea is you want to be able to squeeze your handle, because in order to, lift correctly, which is like getting your shoulder back and not necessarily pulling on your rigging where you're wanting to pull your upper body forward, but it's similar to, like, it's better almost to incorporate a little bronc riding talk and explain how they like to keep their shoulders, like more in a sense behind their swells or behind their belly button.
Mm-hmm.
We're essentially trying to do the same thing. And if you don't have a comfortable, like if your hand's too tight in there and you can't actually squeeze your whole hand around your handle, well, then you can't really lift, and you're necessarily just trying to hold on for dear life, and you can't get your shoulder back. Well, if we make sure that everything feels good, and yeah, we do ride a bind. Some guys will ride what's called a top and a bottom tit, and even one right there on their knuckle to hit their shelf. And some guys are crazy, and they ride a setup to where they can basically run their hand in without any assistance. And the way they've got it set up and dremelled and filed on the rigging, it's literally the top tit, the bottom tit, and that knuckle just hitting everything perfectly to where, like, if they want to look over there and jump off, their hand basically just comes right out. I'm a little different. I ride a little bit more palm in there. And so usually I got to work my glove out a little more. But like I said, it's super, super important to be in there good enough that, that rigging's hanging on to you just a little bit. But obviously, in case of a bind, you want to be able to check out. So
Sanderson Ford is celebrating.
Ow! Can he slow it down a bit?
Hey, Randy, turn down the heat.
That's perfect. We're celebrating our 69th anniversary sale.
Now during the Mighty Fine 69 anniversary sale, get home run deals like these.
Get 1.9 financing on F-150 trucks. Get 0% financing plus $1,000 flex buy cash on new Escapes.
Catch the savings at Sanderson Ford.
A proud partner of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Well, and you talking about equipment, we were talking a little bit earlier before we started recording, but how important it is. I mean, you had an injury in San Antonio, which we'll show the picture here, where that mare reared up in the chute and pinched you in there. Had an injury to your groin area because the way the rigging mashed up against you.
Yep.
So having a pad built, which you explained to me how important that was to keep your career going.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously they say the chute can sometimes be the scariest part. And yeah, in 2020, my first San Antonio rodeo in the short round, big round horse that I've won a lot of money on, she kind of had her head down, and she's not really prone to smash a guy, but I was trying to be a horseman in there, and I'm also trying to be fast, and I'm trying to get her head up because she's so big. I don't want to nod and her, drag her nose across the dirt and me basically throw my spurs over her neck and end it from the start. So I'm trying to get her head up, and my buddy Cole's on the neck rope trying to pick her head up. And it's a pretty funny look on his face when the gates open and she's pretty much vertical, smashing the life out of me. And yeah, I had a little bit of issues after that. Nothing that kept me out of competition, just some pretty good uncomfortableness for a while. It was a pretty hard blow. Ended up like kind of bruising some ribs, did the whole deal, but was super, super thankful that it wasn't worse. Because what's crazy is that wreck looked probably 10 times worse than the one that actually broke my back in 2021. A lot of people watch that and don't understand how it happened, but it's the fact that, when she smashed me, I was able to kind of lean forward and all the blunt force, my back laid flat across the back of the chutes, and all the power just under the rigging underneath my legs kind of just bluntly forced me against there. Whereas when I broke my back, it was actually the top of my shoulders that got pinned behind the back of the slats and compressed my spine down real hard.
Put you in a bind there.
Yeah. So yeah, for sure. You never know what's going to happen. And, some guys you hear, go a long time without ever having any issues ever in the buck and shoot. And every now and then you have a horse that's been there, done that a million times, and one wrong move in there or something that they're feeling different that day. I mean, you just never know. So it's kind of a touch and go game we play sometimes.
Well, let's fast forward. We'll go back to the middle, but we're going to fast forward to 24 at Houston in the semifinals round. That same horse, correct, that did the same thing, reared up, but you weren't on her,
Yep.
but she smashed your rigging and actually broke your rigging.
Yep. So, this would have been my third time getting on her. I actually had her in the NFR in 2022, and we didn't have any issues there. But, I was supposed to be fourth out, and I went to crawl over, and Chuck, the flank man, was just coming to check the flank. And, horses can feel pressure and energy, whether they're a time event horse or a bucking horse, especially one that's been there, done that. And, I pulled her and she stood there like a shot dog, was completely fine, cool, calm, and collected. I obviously, being that the pass we've had, I was already thinking like, I'm going to be quick in here and just try to get out clean. And I crawled, like I said, a lot of guys have no issues with this horse ever. But I'm just trying to avoid the same issue that happened in 20. And I just kind of went to like step over the bar to get in there. And my buddy Keenan Hayes had just left the chute. So, I'm trying to be fast. And right as I go to crawl over there, she doesn't like something, and she ends up slipping the neck rope and hitting the top of my handle pretty good. And it kind of split it apart and made it soft. Just something you obviously wouldn't want to trust, especially when there's 50,000 on the line. So, and what's funny is like the first two guys that had gone leading up to Keenan were left-handed bareback riders. So I jumped back there to grab somebody's rigging, and there's two left-handed riggings of all things. So I'm like, this isn't going to work. So I actually, as they're de-rigging Keenan's rigging off of his horse, I just, kind of grabbed it, and I'm kind of looking for him to, I'm going to probably ride it either way, but I'm like, hey, like, I got to borrow your stuff.
Is this okay? Can I borrow this?
Yeah, and thank God Keenan's got a pretty big hand like me, so I actually ran my glove in his rigging, and it was, I knew it was probably going to work, so I pulled it down on her, and ended up making a good ride. But Keenan, he's a guy that he's about probably 6, maybe 7 inches shorter than me, and kind of rides a little bit more sat up. He's got biceps on him like a tank, and it makes his arm where it's about this long. And me being a longer guy and really having to get underneath my rigging to get my hips underneath me, I just ended up kind of riding the back of his handle that was uncovered, and I ended up doing a little bit more damage. So well, it was interesting.
And we'll edit this if you want, but you tore your urethra.
Yeah, I did.
To me, that's nuts, but I'm going to rewind just a little bit. A lot of people don't understand. It's not like in any other sport where when something goes wrong, okay, timeout. They're moving you, they're hustling you. Hey, you need to get going. It's not like you can go back to, which I'm sure you don't have an extra rigging in the locker room. You probably have one in your truck, which when you get to Houston, it's a clip to go out there and get it. And that's even if you had your extra one with you. I'm not sure. But it was bam, bam, split decision. I need to ride this. I need to borrow Keenan's rigging, which in rodeo, a lot of people probably still don't understand is things fit you a certain way. And you explained that a little bit. So was there any, not doubt, I guess, doubt in your mind, like, holy shit, I got to run my hand in a rigging that I've never run it in before. And I'm on a pretty rank horse, and making sure that you grip right, your bind's right, stuff doesn't pop out.
Yeah, it's at that point, obviously you go in to the 10-man at Houston, the night before, maybe you just went through everything. You made sure your glove felt good. It's super humid down in Houston. So I threw a coat of benzoin on there, which makes the leather a little bit stiffer, and kept it in my camper and kept it cool and dry, and, made sure everything was, looking good, feeling good. Cause obviously you want to show up and not have to deal with equipment changes or fixing anything the day of. So, and I'm a guy that likes to come prepared. So, obviously when that happens, you just gotta, basically instead of panicking, you just gotta go, it's time to just be a cowboy basically, because it's still just a cowboy sport. And, as long as your hand will go in, it's like at that point, you gotta just grip it and rip it and not really care about how it feels or what it looks like. And I kind of told myself, cause I'd been telling myself I was going to win Houston. And when that happened, obviously my mind wanted to have a little slight second where I was like, oh crap, like, what am I going to do? And like I said, it just worked out like a dream that I knew Keenan, as short as he is, he's got a freaking big old bear paw on him like I do. So I knew my hand would actually go in his rigging. If it had been skinny little Cooper Cook that rides a size 6.5 glove, I don't think it would have worked. So, at that point, you just got to know that you've done it enough to ride anything, and you just got to kind of believe in yourself. So, and I was thankful to have a good friend like that to just, loan me his stuff like that.
All right, if you've been following along Luke Branquinho Show this month, you know that we have been doing a cheers to that with our friends at Yeti. The fans sent in some recipes for some drinks, and we built them. Well, this is the last one for the month, and Buckaroo 128 sent in a real easy one. It was a cold beer poured in a Yeti cup. So we're going to use this 20-ounce Yeti stackable stainless steel. He wanted Coors Light, but I'm going to go with a Stella. It was my father-in-law's favorite. Off the top. Make sure we pour it just right. And we're about there. Oh, that's perfect. Cheers to you, Buckaroo 128. Bottoms up, and here's to a great rest of the year. And I mean, like you said, it's time to cowboy up. That's what we do every day, even when we have our own stuff. But to me, that's still impressive. I mean, to run your hand in there. But not only that, you rode in the Tin Man, made it back to the Final Four. Again, torn urethra. You have to get on another horse in the same rigging. Thankfully, I guess I'm not thankful, but Keenan didn't advance right to the 4-man.
That's right. And this is talk about good spirited and I didn't know what was going on, being that, Binion Surveys, he's freaking out. It's the last day. He's been running a pretty good production and he's trying to get it going. I told him, I was like, like I said, I was 4th out of 10 guys. So I was like, go get the rest of the guys. By the time you get done with Caleb, who's supposed to be last, I will be ready. Like, I'll have my hand running my rigging. Nothing's going to slow down. And Keenan, right before I crawled in there, he was like, if you bump me out, you owe me 10%. And I didn't really, my mind is just locked in. So I didn't really know till afterwards that he was actually in 4th place to come back to the 4-man. And I won the round and ended up bumping him out with his own rigging. So that was kind of funny. And then another thing too is he had agent links in the 4-man the year before, whenever I won it on Yippee. And then so I got to put his rigging on, agent in the 4-man after that. And surprisingly enough, a lot of people, which like I could take credit. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you got on like that. Like, you're so tough. Well, I didn't even know anything was wrong until I got back to the locker room, and my traveling partner, Caleb Bennett, kind of looked at me funny, and he was like, good ride. He was like, I sure hope that's not your blood. You know what I mean? And I didn't know what he meant. And I still had my shats on. I'm fixing to kind of retape and everything, and noticed I had a pretty good little clot of blood all down my pants, and was kind of like wondered where it came from. And sure enough, it was coming out of the last place you'd want blood to be coming out of. So at that moment, I knew something wasn't right. And I kind of just figured it up to be that nut pad. So I took mine off my rigging and put it on Keenan's and made sure it was okay. I used it again and just kind of rid it of my mind, and went to the bathroom one time, and it didn't look pretty at all. So I just was like, all right, no more of that. We're going to just not think about it till this deal's over, go in Houston, and then figure it out. And so, right after the 4-man and all the good stuff happened, I went straight to the ER and spent about 8 hours there.
Man, a bittersweet win. Obviously, you get the W, and then straight to the ER, and that's just rank, man. And we always go back to, I guess, more of our cowboy roots, and that's just the cowboy way. You finish the job, get it done, and like you winning first for the second time at Houston, and then we go to the doctor. I mean, that's just our mentality.
Yeah, no, I mean, you just, like I said, you got to shut your brain off. And I like to tell myself the good old saying, it's a long ways from your heart. So,
well, yeah, it dang sure is. But, man, I can't even imagine. I mean, I've been hurt and competed, but I couldn't imagine a torn urethra and having to sit, much less ride a saddle horse, but ride a bareback horse where generally that's a lot of pressure in that groin area.
Sure. Yeah. And obviously I knew stuff was pretty messed up. And if you're going to be at a rodeo and have to do it again, knowing what you're dealing with, it might as well be the 4-man at Houston. So I was kind of like, and I actually ended up with the horse that in my mind that I wanted to win it on. And so I was just going to let it all hang out and worry about the consequences after. I didn't really go to thinking like, oh, if I win Houston, it'll make this better. Like I never thought about any of that until I was sitting in the hospital, kind of going back through my thoughts, which were pretty blank because I didn't want to think about it. But I was like, I remember in a way in my own mind being like, well, like if this is actually bad and it sets you out for a long time or however it goes, like you might as well just go for the chili and win Houston and then figure it out. And, you know, no matter what, you'll probably be okay. But I was thankful that it wasn't any worse. And I got super lucky that I just had to have a catheter in for about 10 days and went to the doctor here in Dallas and was able to get it removed, and he cleared me to let the rest heal on its own. So I won't have to have a surgical procedure which is what could have been. And if that was the case, I'm getting married here in 2 weeks. I was going to have that catheter in through my wedding until I had surgery. So super, super thankful that the outcome was a little bit different and I'm able to just let it heal on its own. And I'm just going to give it about 6 weeks and then start getting on again.
Well, the energy inside that building too. Is that the guitar you won right behind you? No,
that's my good old guitar right there. I've only won the Super Series in Houston once, and that was 2020, the year that they canceled. I won the set right before they canceled it because of COVID.
Were you in the first set?
I was in the second, I believe.
Second.
And I almost 40%ed it, and they gave just a cooler then. And then every year since, they've given a guitar, and every year since I've been to Houston, I've literally only made it out because I won the third round every year after that. So,
well, whatever it takes, it works great, you know. And to be in that building, I've got to stand in there and get the buckle in the saddle one time. I won second the year before. And I thought, damn it, I was so close to winning this. And then the next year I ended up winning it on Dakota Eldridge Horse Rusty, which was obviously an awesome feeling.
That's pretty cool. I'd seen you'd won it, but that's a cool story. You were almost 2-time there too, huh?
Yeah. And the worst part is I went in the year I won second. I went and I was like, I can't remember, 4-8 or something. Steers tried and ran pretty good that year. And Olin Hannum, which I love Olin to death, he was riding his gray horse. And I had my middle son, Jameson, with me at the time. And Olin was last to go. So I had to get by one more guy. And this gray horse gave him fits in the box. When I'm telling you, it took him 5 minutes to nod. I walked from the chute to the tunnel, back to the chute, back to the tunnel. I had to do it 5 times. Finally, he nods, and I'm like, shit, 1 second. But, you know, it was still pretty cool to be able to come back and win it the next year.
That is cool.
Something about which I really didn't realize is you were a timed event cowboy before started riding bareback horses.
Yeah. No, I grew up roping calves and team roping ever since I started roping steers probably when I was 6 or 7 years old. And all through this, you know, I had the dream that every other kid does of being a professional bull rider. And so I rode, you know, calves and steers and junior bulls and stuff like that. And got in the mix of team roping and enjoyed that. My dad was roping a lot at the time. And then whenever I was about 11 or 12, I started getting tired of going to all these low numbered ropings and making the short round and having my header missed or having my heeler missed. And all my buddies had started to kind of take up roping calves. So that looked pretty intriguing to me. And I started roping calves whenever I was about 12 and really, really fell in love with it and started to work on it. And I kind of got to where I shook the dream of being a bull rider off and thought, you know, hey, I'll just work on this calf roping deal and keep roping steers so they're all around, and kept doing that. And then about my sophomore year in high school, I was like, why not, you know, add a third event and
bareback riding was it?
Start getting on some bareback horses. Damn. And obviously my dad, Kirby, you know, he rode bareback horses professionally for about 10, 15 years. And it's kind of one of those deals. I'd grown up around that atmosphere. So I already, you know, I felt like I had a natured sense of, bareback riding in general. And I wasn't the timed event guy that was real worried about the way I looked and everything. Like I was the guy that, wanted to wear Wrangler jeans, Wrangler shirts, and I would suck my hat down over my ears and rope calves like I was about to spur a bareback horse, like real aggressively. And
Cade
so I always
Swore
loved
type. That reminds me of Cade Swore.
Yeah, no, I was all about like the, let's go hard, let's be a cowboy and do things, aggressively. And so that I already feel like I had the mentality of a bareback rider, even in the timed event deal. And I guess I didn't in a sense do it just for the all around. I really did just want to try it and see how it was. But, then again, there wasn't really anybody that was roping calves and riding bareback horses. And I thought the girls would probably dig it too. And yeah, that's kind of where it all started. And I started getting on there. And then once I started to get it figured out and my calf roping really had come into its own, I'd actually got had one of the best horses that I had underneath me at the time, and was like, progressively winning at all the ropings and at all the youth rodeos, and Joe B's, Barry Burks, all that, was having a lot of success and was starting to pick up checks at the amateur rodeos and the bareback riding. And then next thing I know, I'm winning all arounds at all the high school deals, and kind of just thought maybe this is what I'm supposed to do, and I looked up to guys like Trevor Brazile and Ty Murray and thought it'd be pretty neat to be an all-around cowboy, and worked those 3 events up until college. And then obviously when you start getting out on your own and money's tight and horses are expensive, and I had a slew of them, I saw how easy it was to get up and down the road with just a bareback rigging and
a camper.
And a camper, a truck and camper. And I had the whole truck camper and 3-horse Bruton bumper pull in college, and thought I was cool, and it's still a dream of mine to kind of do that at some point. But like I said, I was a broke college kid and ended up losing that horse, and just had a couple young ones, and was really, really loving the bareback riding. And I saw an opportunity to really hone in on that craft. And like I said, I still rope, not often, but I do here and there. I don't even own a calf horse, but I still rope steers and tie from the post with my buddies. And I'm not scared to enter a rodeo and go jump on if I'm, able to. But yeah, the bareback riding just kind of consumed me, I guess you could say. And it was something that I was like, this is the gold buckle I really want to win.
Sanderson Ford is celebrating.
Ow! Can he slow it down a bit?
Hey, Randy, turn down the heat.
That's perfect. We're celebrating our 69th anniversary sale.
Now during the Mighty Fine 69 anniversary sale, get home run deals like these.
Get 1.9 financing on F-150 trucks. Get 0% financing plus $1,000 flex buy cash on new Escapes.
Catch the savings at Sanderson Ford.
A proud partner of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Well, in the Linderman Award is such a prestigious award in the sport of rodeo. And I mean, that's something that it sounds like to me is very attainable for you. You just have to enter. Now, I had Josh Frost on, and we talked about, it's not like it used to be. You used to be able to go to a rodeo in the steer wrestling. He said you used to be able to go be 8 or 9 and win a check in the steer wrestling, and tie down roping. He said similar. You can go be 9 or 10 and win a check. They've specialized so much in single events now. Guys got to kind of figure out where he wants to go to kind of get those checks.
For sure. And, I definitely thought a lot about that. And I know that I'm competitive enough to enter any rodeo in the calf roping. And I mean, I guess like, it's hard to say because I haven't done it numerous times, but like, not last year, but the year before, I entered, 2,000 added Belton, Texas, but it had, like 100, like maxed out on entries, had 100 entries. Right. There was probably, 15 different world champions there and guys that were, it's a Texas circuit rodeo. Everybody's, whether they're riding their young horse or their second, either way, the slack was, they were there. Everybody was there. And I had been practicing a little bit and was kind of had it in my mind to win the Linderman deal. The year before when I broke my back, I was actually able to come back before I rode bareback horses, and I was able to rope calves. And I got a horse underneath me and started roping steers and roping calves every day and kind of sharpened back up and was like, hey, maybe next year, like I'll try to do this. So in February, I entered Belton, rode my friend Chet White's horse, and ended up, I was actually last out in the slack, which was kind of cool. And everybody was tying. They had big, hard running calves and that were pretty strong. A lot of guys were getting kicked, and I had a second run, and my calf was terrible the first time, and they tied him in like 15. And so I'm just like, whatever, I'm just going to go try to blast this thing, try to be a cowboy, you know what I mean? And I ping the barrier back and take 2 swings and put him on his side, dig him up, tear apps and a hooey, and win Belton. And I'm like, here we go, you know, like, and you got to have 1,500 won in 3 events.
Right.
And so I won like, you know, $1,200 in Belton, but that was more to me because I knew right then and there that I was capable of going anywhere and doing it. And then as I got so busy going, and obviously it's hard when you're trying to borrow a horse and do that whole deal. Cause like for the life of me, the cost of these, you know, horses these days, it's like the thought of crippling one is just, you know, you're like, cause I'm not the type of guy would be like, oh, sorry, man. I, you know, crippled your $100,000 horse. Like, you know, hope you got insurance or whatever. Like I would have to get a loan from the bank and probably buy him or something, you know? So, that was always there. And obviously I've tried to think about getting some horses underneath me, but it's tough. And whenever you're trying to, you know, build a life for yourself and obviously bareback riding is my number one. And I feel like I'm about to step into my prime in that event. Life just obviously took it a couple different turns, but yeah, it used to be a little different. Now it's like wherever you go, whether you're bulldogging, calf roping, team roping, or riding bareback horses, whatever you're trying to do to get that third event, because that's what's tough about it. A lot of people think you can just rope calves and just ride bareback horses and you work both ends and you can be eligible. Well, you have to have that third event, and you have to win 1,500 there. So now with the numbers that we have, it doesn't matter what you're trying to do or where you're trying to duck off at. It's tough.
This question is from Tom C. MS PPES. Question is, have you ever mounted out on any of Wayne Jennings' horse, going early back in your career? Stay tuned and I will answer that question a little bit later on in the show. Well, my rookie year, I won the rookie in the steer wrestling, and I won the overall, which is obviously just the most amount of money. I was trying to win the all around as well. And that was damn sure tough enough to try to, you know, get 2001 in the calf rope. And I mean, and that was back in 2000. And to me, it's just the competition. Like I said, it's got so single event specialized where these kids at such a young age, and you mentioned the Joe B ropings, Barry Burr. I mean, these guys putting on these ropings where you have, you know, 12-year-olds tying them in 7s and 8s. And that's just the horsepower, and these kids are just specializing in single events. So yeah, I could see how it's tough to go get 1,500 in you know your other 2 events now. But
for sure,
you know, that it's great for the sport of rodeo to see how it's getting so, I guess it's advanced so much more for the way these kids are working at it and practicing. But the only thing is, like you said, horsepower. It's nothing to go spend $100,000 and have a horse that helps you get up and down the road.
Right. And that's another transitional period that I was a part of too, because, you know, I remember winning something odd of like around 50 or 60,000 on a horse that I paid $5,000 for, like my sophomore or junior year in high school. And he was old too. When I bought him, he was like about to turn 20, and they'd kind of practice on him, but he was obviously getting old and not wanting the miles, but he was just solid. And I remember writing a check for $5,000 for him, and then took him to a roping that weekend and won like 6,500, and then, you know, used him up and then ended up selling him for, I think, the same price to another little kid. And, you know, that is just absolutely unheard of now. Like you can't buy a yearling for 5,000 sometimes, you know what I mean? Let alone something that's finished. And, so that's pretty crazy to think about. And, hats off to honestly everybody in the timed event world. It truly is a whole different atmosphere and animal to get up and down the road, hauling at, you know, more than one head of horses at a time. Like I said, I know I'm capable of doing it, and I would love to maybe be in the position to do it in the future. Cause like I said, I know I'm capable of doing things like maybe winning an all around world title or a Linderman title. But man, like I said, hats off to guys hauling horses up and down the road. That takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, truck, trailer, horses, vet bills, feed. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. And, you know, we talk about what people see on the internet with world standings and how much guys are winning nowadays, which is great. The money's gotten better, don't get me wrong. But what they don't realize is the cost that goes into it. In the timed events, obviously in all the events, but the timed events, you see guys like, I use Tyler Wagensback because he's a steer wrestler. He wins almost $500,000, but horsepower, trucks, trailers, rigs, insurance, everything that goes into it.
Yeah.
It's not a cheap lifestyle, so you better be damn good at it.
That's exactly right. And build your business right with sponsors and it can be done, but it's one of those deals. If if you're not a top 20 guy, I'd say it's still hard to say you're actually making, a good living, because if you're, like I said, if you're not winning, then boy, there's a lot of tires on that trailer and a lot of vet bills that come with all that, and feed, making sure your animals are feeling good, and let alone keeping your competitive edge and making sure you're ready to compete. And that's what I do enjoy. Obviously with rodeo, you're always dealing with an animal and a different mind and a different brain. But at the end of the day, we're getting stock, 3 to 5 days before we go. And with, obviously being around this sport as long as I have, and as much as I pay attention to horses, like I can pretty well tell you, how I'm going to do that weekend. Obviously not for a fact, but I got a pretty good idea whether I'm going to go beat you on all 3 horses that weekend, or whether I may not go because I know I don't have a chance to win, or maybe I'm just going to go to that one because, I can get it where I'm not driving, that 800-mile trip to go rope that one bad calf or run that one steer that's, going to stop or whatever it is. You know what I mean? I kind of know what I'm getting into a little bit more, which is nice. So like I said, there's nothing easy about getting to the top in the timed events. And it's a lot of freaking work.
Yeah. And speaking of work, you're going to have a job coming up here because you were drafted. Obviously you're going to be just cleared from recovering from your injury, but you got drafted by the legend Trevor Brazile on Team Lowriders for the Kid Rocks Rockin' Rodeo, May 17th at AT&T. I mean, when you got that call, that had to be a pretty good feeling. Yeah,
to be selected out of a small pool of guys for a first time event that nobody really knows what's going to happen, other than if Kid Rock's involved with anything, you got to know it's probably going to be pretty badass. That was pretty special, and to go right along with the guy I'm teamed up with in the bareback riding, Jake Blees. He's just coming off his first NFR. He's riding really, really, really good. And I've kind of browsed through our team. I haven't really looked at the other ones. I know they're probably pretty salty too, but just based off of the guys and girls that we have on our team, I mean, and let alone our coach. Don't
forget your assistant coach. If we don't give Dale a little bit of credit here, he's Dale Brisby, assistant coach to Lowriders.
Well, we have 2 of the greatest all time coaching us, so it's going to be pretty hard to beat there. No, it's going to be a neat deal, and I've looked into it, and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a new deal for rodeo. It's a team format. Rodeo, like we talked about, it's constantly evolving and new things are happening, and who knows what this could turn into. So it's always fun to be a part of a first time event because, it's the first one. You never know what's going to happen after that. Right. So, like I said, it's funny how God works things out. I had a little rut row in Houston, but I'm comfortable with sitting out 6 weeks and making sure my body's ready to go. And then I'll actually get married in the process and then come back at my first one in 6 weeks in Arlington. And then we're actually works out good because we planned this before all of this, but we'll actually go to our honeymoon for a week in Mexico in between the Kid Rock Rodeo and the first week of June, which is where I'll actually come back for professional rodeo at the Riggin Rally in Darby, Montana, and kind of start my summer.
Sanderson Ford is celebrating.
Ow! Can he slow it down a bit?
Hey, Randy, turn down the heat.
That's perfect. We're celebrating our 69th anniversary sale.
Now during the Mighty Fine 69 anniversary sale, get home run deals like these.
Get 1.9 financing on F-150 trucks. Get 0% financing plus $1,000 flex buy cash on new Escapes.
Catch the savings at Sanderson Ford,
a proud partner of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Well, when I was there, being the commissioner, I got to see all the picks and everything. And man, your guys' coach, they were very they were very deliberate on what they wanted, how they got them, and they were smart about the draft, which new deal, not knowing how it's all going to work, but Trevor and Dale, they even had Shadow there kind of being their secretary, making sure they did all the right picks. But it is going to be exciting, something new. Kid Rock's involved, PBR's involved, but it's also at Cowboy Stadium, AT&T Stadium in Arlington, sports mecca, where some of the greatest athletes in the world have played, which obviously they've had the American there in the past, but man, they are fired up. They're pumped. Everybody's excited for this event. So it's going to be fun to be involved, and I'm glad you got to be a first-year contestant, and hopefully you'll get that part of $1 million.
Man, that would be awesome. And, what's crazy to me, and I'll say it on, in front of public, like no different than this audience. Like I've always had literal dreams about winning the American, and not only winning the American, but like winning the million. But it's always been in AT&T Stadium where I can vision it and see it and dream about it. You know what I mean? And ever since I watched Richie, I'd been on maybe 2 bareback horses when Richie won it the very first year that it happened, won the 1.1 million. And ever since then, I don't know why, I've literally had where I laid down and dreamt about getting on Virgil in the 4-man 2 different times, and won the side pot both times. And the weird things that have kept me from the American in AT&T, I never got to ride there in the American. The one year that I finally qualified in the top 10, when they had it in the top 10 after my first NFR, that was the year I broke my back. And then Tilden Hooper got to take my spot, and that's where he won his first of 2. And either way, my first time to go to the American was in Globe Life. But it's crazy because here we are, and the way things work out, where we got this first event in AT&T Stadium. It's another $1 million rodeo. It's never happened. And it's going to be my first time competing at the Cowboy Stadium. I just, like I said, maybe this is kind of what I've been dreaming about. I don't know, but I haven't got to nod my head there yet. But places that have that kind of atmosphere is kind of where I let a whole nother animal go. And hopefully you show up and you draw good, and you got to do your job. But like I said, I feel like I can do something special on a stage like that. And being that it's the first event, I'm just stoked to go out there and be a part of something with a team too.
Well, and before that, like you mentioned before, you and Cody, your fiance, are getting married. So you got some downtime before, and then obviously a big wedding coming up. And man, I appreciate you coming on the show. This has been it's educational for me to hear about the rigging and the different what size glove you got to fit in there and how you guys bind them up and all that. And man, it's been fun. I appreciate you coming on.
Just so people do know before we end this, it is not a common bareback injury to tear your urethra. That's that's the question I've gotten more than any of them. They're like, is that a common thing, like in y'all's event? And because it would make sense, like, I guess in a way, we're obviously riding a pretty hard rig and handle between our legs, but no, it is indeed not. And hopefully this is the last time I have to deal with any of this. But Luke, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you for having me on. I've always looked up to you. It's enjoying to talk to you.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Leighton. And we'll see you at the Kid Rock's Rockin' Rodeo.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy. This question is from Tom C. MS PPES. Question is, have you ever mounted out on any of Wayne Jennings' horse going early back in your career? That is actually who gave Tom his first start. Yes, I knew Wayne Jennings very well. I actually bought a Hayes horse from him, an old roan horse. I never did ride his great horse that Butch Myers won the world on. But I did ride a lot of Wayne's stuff, and he was a cowboy, and he always had good mounts. Hey, you want to see more in-depth details on the Luke Branquinho Show? Make sure you like and subscribe.